Billions of dollars of oil move invisibly across the world's oceans, hidden from authorities by a shadowy network of ships known as the Dark Fleet. Imagine vessels that vanish from global tracking systems, change names like chameleons, and secretly transfer cargo in international waters, all to bypass sanctions and keep illicit oil flowing. For years, Venezuela's Dark Fleet has been a lifeline for its embattled regime, dodging U.S. sanctions with increasingly sophisticated tricks. But now, a relentless crackdown is disrupting this underground web, seizing key ships and forcing the fleet's ghostly vessels into retreat. The Dark Fleet's hidden network. Beneath the surface of global shipping lies a vast covert network known as the Dark Fleet, responsible for moving nearly 1/15 of the world's oil. This shadowy armada, made up of roughly 1,400 aging tankers, specializes in transporting Venezuelan, Russian, and Iranian crude in violation of international sanctions. Unlike typical fleets that operate under strict regulations and transparent tracking, these vessels thrive by slipping through the cracks of maritime law, enabling illicit oil trade on an industrial scale. While the scale alone is staggering, it's the fleet's ability to exploit loopholes and technological tricks that keeps the flow of black market oil alive against mounting pressure. As we explore this intricate system, the deceptive tactics that sustain it become increasingly crucial to understand. Behind this dark network, anonymous owners and operators reap massive profits, shielding themselves from accountability while exploiting Venezuela's crises for financial gain. The fleet acts almost like a hidden lifeline, channeling revenue that supports sanctioned regimes amid widespread isolation. Yet despite its size and influence, this network remains largely invisible to casual observers, hidden in plain sight on the vast oceans. Revealing their methods not only exposes the fleet's influence but also offers a glimpse into how complex smuggling schemes exploit the weaknesses of international enforcement. From their shadows, these vessels weave a web of false signals and ghostly movements that confound maritime trackers and delay intervention efforts. Spoofing and disappearing acts. One of the Dark Fleet's most insidious tactics is signal spoofing, where ships broadcast false locations to confuse global tracking systems and maritime authorities. This deception means a single vessel might appear thousands of miles from its true position, erasing any straightforward attempt to monitor its path. Venezuela in particular has been a pioneer in this practice since at least 2020, using technology to disguise where its oil tankers actually sail. Ships might report being near the West African coast or off Lomé, Togo, while quietly heading to Venezuelan ports to load illicit cargo. This artificial rerouting not only masks their real destinations but also conceals the transportation of sanctioned oil. Beyond simple spoofing, vessels take advantage of going dark, a practice where they turn off their transponders entirely at critical junctures, effectively disappearing from maritime radar. This blackout often happens near choke points like the Cape of Good Hope, where ships begin their journey from Asia towards the Americas. Once invisible, these ships can sail untracked through international waters, allowing them to covertly load or offload cargo without triggering alarms. The strategy is meticulously planned. Turned-off transponders prevent consistent satellite tracking, and later false positioning signals create a smokescreen covering their real movements. This cycle frustrates enforcement efforts, buying the fleet precious time to evade sanctions and continue their trade. Invisible ships need secretive methods to move their oil, and that brings us to the shadowy world of transfers at sea, covert transfers at sea. Once Dark Fleet vessels switch off their tracking devices and disappear into remote waters, they often engage in ship-to-ship transfers far from prying eyes. While such transfers are common in legitimate shipping, usually conducted within port limits and under the supervision of authorities, these illicit operations take place in international waters beyond the reach of enforcement agencies. Satellite images have even captured these secretive exchanges, like one spotted in the South China Sea, highlighting how routine and organized the process has become. This covert tactic is critical for disguising the origin of the oil and breaking the paper trail that sanctions enforcement relies on. These transfers allow tankers to mix cargo or offload part of their shipment to another vessel, effectively laundering the oil and making it difficult to prove its Venezuelan or sanctioned origin. The flexibility to load or unload at sea lets the dark fleet sidestep port restrictions and international checkpoints, which are becoming increasingly strict due to sanctions. It also enables ships to wait in holding patterns, sometimes loitering off coastlines for days, until the timing looks right to continue their journey. This approach exploits gaps in maritime law where international waters are often zones of limited oversight and jurisdictional ambiguity. This leads us directly into the dark fleet's next survival tactic, assuming new names and flags to hide in plain sight. So like and subscribe to follow the investigation. False identities and flags. To further cloak their activities, dark fleet vessels frequently change names and flags, making them elusive targets for authorities tracking sanctioned shipments. Crews may even repaint a ship's name while at sea. One tanker famously transformed from the White Crane to Rain by simply altering its lettering. These vessels often register under countries with lax maritime laws or fly false flags, which is essentially the equivalent of putting fake license plates on a car. This constant disguise helps them evade detection and complicates efforts to link ships to illicit oil cargoes. The sheer number of these flagless or falsely flagged ships, hundreds by some estimates, creates a murky legal environment where accountability becomes near impossible. These so-called stateless vessels are particularly vulnerable under international law, but only if enforcement agencies choose to act decisively. Lacking a legitimate flag means these ships operate outside the usual protections maritime law grants, allowing authorities to board and seize them under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Yet this vulnerability hasn't stopped many from gambling on deception to continue their trade. The risk calculation here is clear. Hiding behind a false flag lowers the chance of immediate capture, but it permanently brands a ship as lawless and open to interdiction. This precarious existence is costly, but has been a necessary gamble to keep Venezuela's oil exports flowing despite heavy sanctions. Even the fleet's most clever disguises cannot fully protect it from increasing interdiction efforts led by the United States. U.S. crackdown and seizures. In recent months, the U.S. has ramped up an aggressive crackdown on dark fleet tankers, enforcing sanctions with unprecedented resolve. Several vessels, including the 20-year-old tanker named Skipper, have been seized after using deceptive practices like location spoofing and covert ship-to-ship transfers. The Skipper, for example, spoofed its location to appear offshore Guyana while actually sailing into Venezuelan waters to load over 1.5 million barrels of crude. Shortly after offloading part of its cargo to another vessel, U.S. forces boarded the ship and redirected it to U.S. waters, sending a clear message to dark fleet operators that their impunity is ending. This interdiction caused other vessels to hesitate, with some even loitering offshore Venezuela before eventually turning back. This growing U.S. campaign has created a de facto blockade around Venezuelan oil exports, with the Coast Guard and other agencies intensifying patrols and boarding suspicious ships. The case of the Bella 1 showcases the fleet's desperate efforts to evade capture. After being chased in the North Atlantic, the Bella 1 changed names to Marinara, registered in Russia, and even painted its new name in Cyrillic script to masquerade as a Russian tanker. Despite these efforts, it was seized in early January, exposing the limits of false identities in the face of persistent enforcement. With the fleet under increasing attack, the future of Venezuela's clandestine oil trade hangs in the balance, threatened by both legal and operational challenges. The dark fleet's future and global impact. The dismantling of Venezuela's dark fleet marks a significant turning point in the enforcement of international sanctions, but its fate is far from sealed. According to recent shipping analytics, no dark fleet tankers have been observed loading Venezuelan oil in several weeks, signaling a near halt to this once lucrative trade route. Many vessels are now idle, abandoned by their owners who find them too costly to maintain or too risky to operate under increasing legal pressure. This sudden drop in activity suggests the dark fleet's model in Venezuela has been effectively broken, at least for the foreseeable future. Yet while the dark fleet may be retreating from Venezuelan waters, its global operations persist, especially in transporting Iranian and Russian oil. Some analysts warn that these networks might adapt or relocate, continuing to exploit loopholes and weak enforcement elsewhere. However, the U.S.'s recent crackdown has also established a blueprint for other countries to follow, increasing international cooperation and lowering tolerance for illicit shipping practices. This could lead to tighter restrictions globally, shrinking the dark fleet's operating space beyond Venezuela and changing how energy sanctions are enforced worldwide. The U.S. crackdown has severely disrupted Venezuela's dark fleet, exposing the complex tactics used to evade sanctions and challenging the shadowy oil trade sustaining a regime under fire. As enforcement tightens, the future of this covert network hangs in the balance, showing that even the darkest corners face increasing daylight. If you found this explanation insightful, please like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into global affairs and energy issues.